Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Yiser, and I am currently the kindergarten through second grade autistic support teacher at Elko School District. I'm actually at Fort Teller Elementary School. Previously, when we had met, I was the kindergarten through fourth grade emotional support teacher at Pine Grove Elementary School. So, some things with me have changed since the last time we met. The teaching style that I have now in the autistic support classroom is a lot different than how I was teaching in the emotional support classroom. My students still receive social skills, but they're assessed based off of the VB MAP assessment, and then we derive their programming from their VB MAP assessment, so it's very individualized and specific to their needs. The way I teach is also very different. I'm teaching verbal behavior in my classroom. So the things that go along with that are terms like tacting, which is labeling. So I would hold up a picture and the student would tell me the name of that picture. They mand, which is requesting an item. So if they want a cookie, they ask for the cookie. There's also a coax where they just repeat what you say, and motor imitation, where they imitate someone's movements. And then there also is listener responding, which means they respond to what you say as a listener, and introverbals, where they have to answer questions. So I might ask, what is your address? What is your phone number? Before students get other intricate introverbal questions, we just teach personal information because it can be rote memorization, because we don't want them to memorize, oh, how was your day? Good. And every time they say good. So to avoid that, they have to have a lot of verbal skills before they can move on to introverbals of that type. They also don't really receive any kind of math or language arts instruction until they're on the third level of their VB map. The reason for this is because they need a lot of other verbal language before they can get to these math skills. And it's also important to get the basic verbal language skills down first before they move on to higher academic skills. So I have not yet completed ACTE 634, but I did complete ACTE 632. I completed the responding to individual learners, and in that class I learned a lot about accommodations that are possible for students in an online classroom. I also learned about the similarities between the IEP process, which are that the parents are still involved. They do a video conference and they can discuss as a team what the needs are for the student and what would be best for them. I also learned there are some differences in the evaluation process. Parents are more involved in that evaluation process and saying to the teacher that they think their child would need special education services, whereas in a school it's usually brought to the parent's attention from the teacher or a psychologist. The biggest takeaway I took from that course was the role of the learning coach, and their responsibility and relationship with the teacher. The learning coach is there to help students and work very closely with the teacher, which I think is very important because that takes the idea of parent involvement to a whole nother level. They are truly immersed in what the student is learning and supporting them to make sure they're successful. I can also see how that is helpful for students with IEPs and special needs, because then that learning coach is there to help support that student and know exactly what the teacher expects. It helps them be effective and benefits the student in an online environment. I do wonder for my students with the verbal behavior needs and the reinforcement needs that they have, if a learning coach would be enough for them. My students need very specific reinforcement and praise, and it has to be differentiated based on how they're working and what they're doing. So for me, as the teacher, I am the one who has to be reinforcing them, or otherwise sometimes they don't even want to come to the table, they don't want to do work. So making sure that I'm reinforcing is a way that we get the students to come do their work. So without that relationship, I'm not sure if it would be um, effective in an online environment. That's something I would like to learn more about. My other thought with that is, in my classroom, students get one-on-one instruction because their program is so specific to their needs and their verbal language. So my thought is, would I have to have similar programs and run students closer together, do a group of two, maybe two kids that have similar programming, or would there be time and would it be effective if I could do one-on-one sessions with students? So those are some questions I still have moving forward, especially now in this new position as an autistic support teacher. My teaching philosophy continues to stay the same throughout the online learning experience. There are some things that I've learned throughout the courses I've taken that kind of changed it just a little bit, um, but mostly it's the same. I want my students to feel safe and I want them to feel like they can share not only in a face to face environment, but in an online environment where they can share with me, they can share with their peers. Communication is everything, and having that relationship and rapport is very important to me. So I want students to feel welcome and feel like they are good and want to be in the class. Also, that they love learning and that they want to learn and they want to come to the class and be motivated. So that's kind of the takeaway point also from our previous classes, motivation. And it's also a takeaway point that I've had throughout my time here at Elko as an autistic support teacher is everything is based off on motivation and students wanting to learn. And I know in our last class, ACTE 632, it was a lot of motivation that drives students. So I think that's important that motivating students would be added to my philosophy. As I said, motivation is very important because the more students are motivated to learn, the more they will get out of the teaching. Also, um, beyond them feeling safe in a face to face environment or an online class, I want them to be motivated to learn and to enjoy what they're learning. If it's something they enjoy, they'll get more out of it and they'll be more engaged, which is very important to me. Finally, I think that we've been looking thoroughly into online classes and how to make them more beneficial for students. So I think and agree that this is helping influence the structure and looking at exactly how we should be teaching and what is the most beneficial for students. So, looking at it through a microscope is definitely informing face to face instruction. I've seen it in myself, I've thought about it, and I've taken ideas, even from my classroom as the autistic support classroom. We're teaching things that you would teach a 0 to 4 year old child. That's what our VB MAP assessment is. 0 to 4 years old, and we're teaching motivation and we're teaching imitation and we're using reinforcement to teach those behaviors so the students can learn them. So I think it's important that we're looking at how to build up from the very basics and what students need now in society, to kind of inform face to face instruction, because the things that we're finding work in online environments will work in face to face classrooms, and they're very important to incorporate. So, another idea that we learned about is the whole mind instruction and student centered learning. All of these are important aspects that should be included in a face to face classroom. Rarely we see this idea taking place, but I wish it would be more put into the classroom rather than the typical rote memorization and teaching to the test. Um, so hopefully teachers in face-to-face classrooms will be more informed on the topics that are being taught in online learning environments and how to effectively teach students. Bye guys.